Well, let's go ahead and turn it over to Vincent for what I learned about Perl and Catalyst.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vincent. So, this is my first time speaking here. Share my screen anyway. Okay. Let me set up. Can you guys see the screen?
We can just open up a different tab so that way you don't get
yeah. Oh no. Still Infinite Mirror is not a Academy website.
Hang on.
Okay, let me do something else.
Be sharing the wrong tab.
I want to show the window as well, so I can show the code.
So you just so click the window.
Yeah, window.
And then click. No, you have to click it here in the middle. Yeah. No, that's just showing the tab. You want to show the whole window. You said, right?
So, I don't want to show this one. I want to show the.
Unfortunately, it's Hangouts is kind of sucky. You got to choose. You have to have this be on the screen you want to share. So unfortunately, this is the way it works. That's why I think it's crap.
Okay, let me do some. Sorry if I. Okay. Shit.
Yep. Now they can see it.
Okay. How is this? Okay. 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 So I'm sorry for the interruptions. This is not really my first Perl project, but it is a first a full project that I've done. That I written majority of the code, except the beginning where John helped me set up. And you can see from this format, from this page, it's very similar to the website John just showed you guys from his demonstration agenda, which we use the similar structures. We basically start from that agenda side, but we added it here to make this Academy website. And Academy is a web application for Academy, which is a website John works for, Purdue. This Academy website is a customer management, relation management system, and it uses most of the John's frameworks like Catalyst and Valiant. And here I will briefly show you what it does, and then I will talk through the process I want to create this website and the challenges I faced or I encountered with Perl programming. So let's first, when we first logged in, you will bring you to this homepage. You will have a statistics of all the informations for the users about this is Academy and Academy is institution is a application that lets institutions or instructors or departments users where they have this survey service, and when they use this survey service, Academy will record all the usages, and then we will charge them based off the usage. Academy is a customer relationship management system that we manage the accounts. You go to accounts here, which have all the institutions accounts that uses this service. And when we have a new institution, wants to use the service, we add the account here, and you can see the forms here, which is very similar to the Agenda website John just showed you guys. And we create an account. We create an account based off the type, department type, or instructor type, or simply institution type. And then we have an account here. And then we can show for the account, we have billings and licenses. And billing here, we have the billing information. So basically, we create a billing information for this account, has all the contact name, email addresses. And then we have licenses here, which is the very important part because we charge them based off each license, and license is yearly. So when we create a license, this is a standard type license institution. This doesn't okay, and this is all forms here. And when we're done is the creation of billing and the licenses for the account. We have for the user of the Academy or Academy add employees, or you call them employees. They will have this option to show report to give them all the statistics for this accounts and how many students use their service and how many instructors using their services, how many survey they created for and the lesson start day, the lesson end day, and so the employees can use these details. Sorry, the employees can use these details to write an invoice to send to the school and get the payments. And that's the purpose of this account, this website Academy, to let employees from Academy to do billing for billing workflow more easily. And let's now go back to homepage. Homepage shows the statistics of previous year licenses and the current year licenses, and total licenses here, and the total payment paid. Which account paid the licenses and which didn't, and so they can go through the billing cycle. And here is just an example of the billing workflow. When the employees go through these licenses, they can select them. They can download the iLab report, which they use to send to some sort of service center to do invoice payments. And then you can download the reports, and I just quickly show you. Okay, yeah, just a table, a CSV table, with the reports, of the accounts, the billing contact names, the emails, and so on. And when they're done with the invoice, they can just say invoice sent, and this will change the status of the licenses to invoice sent. And when they pay, they can change the status to paid. And that's in general what this Academy is for. And now I will go through the process of me using mostly Perl and JavaScript, a little bit of JavaScript and HTML and CSS to create this website. So first, this is I started this application from Agenda application, which is a to-do list. By them, the slowly transformed it to Academy. And here I learned, first time I learned a model controller and a view structure. And that got me confused for a little bit, like first and second month, I was still confused with where I should have the files, the front end files for the real HTML files here, and the controller files are mostly the backend stuff. And here we have schema is for the database. And we also have a line. And the a lot of thing I spent a lot of time was database design. It's important to design a clear and a simple database that's not overcomplicated and which slows down the get data speed and post data speed. Here is the SQL stuff, accounts, and this is not Perl, but just the in general process of me create this website. And the Perl code, the catalyst code here. So each in the controller, you can see we have accounts, billings, licenses, tasks from the agenda. So this is just example code I can use. I can keep looking at it every time I got confused. You can see all these folders and files just for specific part of the website. That was really nice because it's actually separate, separate different part of areas. So one like beginner like me, a Perl programmer, I like to look for the where to look for the files to to run my code at. And very simple structure is just show you the build setup and the show pages. It's a very nice orientation. You can follow through. But I was confused in the very beginning because there are a lot of syntaxes I don't understand. And when I try to look through the meta CPAN for the documentations, I really don't know where to look for because it's I don't know, it can be a little confusing. Redirect, and it does take me to a website, but I don't really, because I'm a beginner, so there are a lot of syntax I don't understand, but I do kind of understand for like the arguments and stuff I needed. For example, this is one of the current question I have. I'm looking for is how to return to a previous page. So I'm looking for a method I can return to a previous page URL. And then do I use redirect to with the self action or redirect to action with the target? This is the type questions I ask myself, and I had to try and error. And error handling in Perl programming was a little confusing too. And what I learned from John is a lot of D1. Let me see if I have anything here. I think I have it here. See, I have a lot of D1s used regular warning, D1 sessions, D1 new status. To show, I guess very similar to JavaScript, where you use console logging all the messages and the application process is at before the error happens. And this was quite challenging in the beginning. And anything else? Design HTML code is okay. A lot of things I learned is from controller here. You pass on the object, like for example, licenses here. From the root, first we have the license is the all licenses files, all licenses data, And then we can pass on to with the action next. We can pass on the licenses to next action here list. And then this list here, we can return to the HTML part of the front end part of the website. So you can see the license here, which is pretty convenient and confusing too, because so which means you have to always pass code, pass on data from controller to the HTML part. You have to do that every time for this project, and it's for me. And so let's go to the real HTML licenses list. So here we have we pass on the licenses, and we have here has license is required and stuff. And you have this license here now, so you can access this license data for the HTML part of the code, and some Perl part as well, to help you organize every data, every variable you needed for the user input or display data. And the form handling was also, this project was little challenging with the, as you can see here, we have Perl code, we have CSS code and JavaScript code. This is the CSS code. And we have a push, well, we don't have a push style here, push script here. So just no JavaScript here, but also some of the Perl code inside with pages and stuff. URL was a very challenging topic for me because a lot of time I don't know, like URI base, CURI list. I didn't know any of this in the beginning. Like I had to pass on the arguments, I had to get arguments. That was the things I struggled on, and with Mr. John's help, I often asked his help because, and asked, and I got through most of them. And I can also show you some validation example John mentioned from before, which is inside, I believe it's inside schema. No, is it inside schema? I think it's inside schema. Yes, inside schema. So here's some of the validation code from John's framework. Here validates account name is, and also I wrote some my own methods that is features demanded by Purdue. And this one is to check for duplicate accounts. So if there's existing accounts, same account names and stuff, you can't create the same account name for the account. And there are other validations for the presence, and a lot of duplication validation for institution. If the account, if the institution have the same department twice, you can't have that. And size of the number of the department, you can have this accounts. All sorts validation methods was used here. And there was also email validation. I can quickly show you. So, oh no, not this one. This is the account. We had to go to billing. That billing address. Now you see the input already here because I adapted the previous input data from the previous billing contact information. Just now is skip some of the chores like addresses if they're the same, or the phone number if they're the same. Sometimes they only change the billing contact information about the email address, and maybe they have a different person in charge, so all they did is change the email addresses. But if I remove this, then I should have a a validation error here. Email can be blank, email is not email addresses, and so forth. So that's an example of the validation code by John. And some of the, oh yes, a lot of very challenging part of this project was writing the API for CAMI, because I do use database from CAMI from John's website. Let's see, it's in the model. Web service API. So a lot of the API is just API. As long as you know the structure of the API, then you can get most of the, you can pretty much get all the data you wanted from the API. I think I didn't have that much trouble. I mean, this is the code I written in the very early on, like first 2 months of the project. Yeah, I didn't have too many problems here. I just saw report endpoints and study, and it's the structure of the API. And then, yeah, everything wasn't too bad. I think the API wasn't too bad for Pro here. I didn't struggle too much. It's just a lot of methods for each part, departments, instructions, institutions. Just a lot of duplicate methods. Not really duplicate, but the API is slightly different, structure is slightly different, so you have to write a different method for them. And then what else I did? Recently, I added this filtered list page for a billing cycle, allowed users to do, all the licenses from this page, and then with this allow them to select multiple licenses as they walk through their billing cycle. And this was, I think this part was confusing to me, because a browser can't really store a state, a temporary state. Every time you do refresh, this checkpoint will disappear. So I was having trouble understanding or how to store this state, select state informations. So even the user, refresh the page or go to the next page, this state will, the checkpoint will stay there. And then I learned that I believe it's in here, filters. Here's some JavaScript. It's actually JavaScript where we store the information into a session. We store this state information into a session, which something I learned. And yes, actually there are a lot of information that are stored in a session or in a request param. When we go to controller, in the controller, let's see, filters. See here, we have a search assigned to the C request param search. There's a lot of things I learned that we can do. So even though we can't really store, previously I don't know we can store temporary state into a session. Now I do, and this makes my life a lot easier, because I don't want to store everything into a table, which makes the table overcomplicated, database table overcomplicated. But now we can store the information in the session, so I can always just get them from here and then assign them into like such here a search in the database based off the status, payment status, or search input. Then I can send a new license, the filter license into the HTML part of the page. And yes, and that's how I made my filtered list page. And I mentioned debugging. I mentioned navigations, API. I mentioned some more the template and database. I mentioned, okay. So for this from this project, I learned a lot of, Perl syntaxes, which I never know before, and the catalyst frameworks. I learned that how I can interact the database with, here, I learned how to interact the database with the schema. In schema, I have multiple tables such as account buildings, account institution departments. I learned how to connect them using this methods. Has many, belong to, and I also learned that how to debug. I learned how to debug a Perl programming code here using the one and a lot of also data dump methods. And some challenges I faced that is finding the documentation for the methods I don't know about, such as here. Sometimes here is not clear enough. If here is not clear enough, I still don't understand the documentation. I can go to the source code and try to read through the source code and see how exactly it does the method, how the method returns what I wanted here, such as the URL here. But challenges like that, and also challenges like when I use other frameworks or other packages like JSON. There are like multiple JSON packages, and I just don't know which one to use. And that's a good side and a bad side. The good side is you have many options. You have very flexible options with different syntaxes, and maybe people do things differently. But the bad side is I don't know which one to use because I'm a beginner. I really it's very difficult for me to read through all these different packages. And then a lot of challenge I had was lack of external resources for help. I looked up YouTube. I like watching YouTube videos, but not for this one, not for Perl, because a lot of Perl like guideline videos from 6 years ago. The newest one was actually about John's Catalyst presentation, just like from last month. And a lot of ones like 3 years ago. So there are actually not a lot of resources I can find except MetaCPAN. So I guess people nowadays just ask questions in their private chat and like Slack or other communication application. So they don't really share this question they have online and with other people. So there are not a lot of places that can look for help. Debugging was a little difficult with multiple languages in the same file, like a HTML file here I have. It's actually, I see the reason why I had multiple files here, let's say list here, like the HTML files, CSS file, and the profile post here in the same file here, because they're all related. They're all related, even though I can separate them into like a separate JS file, separate CSS file. But then that means there will be more places I have to look for when there's a bug. So right now I kept them here. It's been working okay. I do have some problems, like such as backward slash for JavaScript here in front of the $sign. I sometimes miss those, and then there will be bug I can't understand, and I don't know it's I'm missing a backslash or syntax error. So that's the problem. That's the problem I had. Yeah, in conclusion, this project helped me understand the fundamental part of Perl and web development using Catalyst. I learned how to structure the project using the model controller and the view structure, and handle user input and integrate APIs. It was a challenging yet rewarding experience that strengthened my programming skills. And that would be my presentation.
Thank you, Vincent.
So I think what we all learned is if people are asking, what can I do? What's one of the number one things I can do to help Perl? Making more videos because, and I've heard this from others, most of the younger programmers like to watch videos on put them out there are big helps. Something we should all think about.
Any questions?
Yes, I do have a question.
Okay.
Okay, great. So I see that one of your main challenges was combining together multiple different languages. And
Yep.
what advice would you give to another programmer or maybe a new programmer who also has to debug multiple languages?
Well, right now, I think the best way is have many debug codes like the D1s in almost every method. Every method of the code you are testing on. So if you are unsure which part of the code is having the error, just have a D1 or one or log application the running process, and when the code stops or when the error stops, and you can see the previous debug like console logging, and so you know exactly the area where the error is happening. And I think that's the way I'm doing right now, such as license license.
Okay, yes.
I think right now I'm working on filters, so that's why I have a lot of one listing license in the list method. I have D1 session linked license IDs and stuff in the update status post. I have select license method here. So I have a login message in every method. So if there's an error happens, I know exactly where the problem is, in which method, and then I can go through the problem. That's how I'm doing it.
Yes, so basically you can have a different type of warning message coming from each different language.
Yes.
Okay, and that helps you to sort out which language is causing which error.
Yes.
Okay, that's great. That's very good advice. Thank you. Okay, let me think. I did have one other question. Oh yes, you were showing your example application that had like some forms that you were filling out to do the validation, and it was like typing in email
Yes.
addresses, I think, to check if the
Okay,
email addresses were valid. So
yes.
So, did you say that you were using the Valiant framework for that, or was it a different framework for the validation?
This is interesting. Actually, I'm not 100% sure which this method is coming from. See here is the method package validates email presence format email.
That's using the Valiant glue for DBS class, and this is a good example of like compared to other languages, where you could just hover over the method and it would you would know where to look to find out what it's part of. With Perl, it can be very difficult because we don't have proper language servers and we don't have proper typing. You just have to know. It's like you just got to know, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is part of Valiant, the Valiant system for form validation, web forms. Okay,
Yes.
great. And then I just had one more follow-up question, and I know we've gone 10 minutes over time, but this was a very, very good talk, Vincent. Thank you, sir. And
Okay, thank you.
I just have a generic question for you. It's not really about your source code this time.
Okay.
But if you were going to give some advice to another young programmer, for example, we have Ohinoi here who's from Nigeria, and he's one of our students at Texas Tech that came out to do a Perl externship with us recently, and he's listening right here. He's in the meeting right now. What advice would you give to the very, very young Perl programmers?
Well, start a project, don't watch videos. And honestly, watching videos can only help you understand the syntax a little bit, but if you are learning multiple languages, JavaScript, C++, Perl, you're not going to remember syntax, so you're going to get confused with the syntax. So eventually you have to look through the documentation again. So watching the videos actually doesn't help that much, except maybe there are specific problems the video is explaining. Otherwise, those general syntax videos, syntax guide videos is not going to help much. So it's best like a starter project, any project, a small project, a to-do list, like a agendum is a to-do list, a task to-do list, or something. You can even just use a Copilot to. Yeah, Copilot is actually great. I'm using Copilot here. You can let me see if I can pull it out. This is I don't know where is my Copilot. Yeah, I don't know where's my Copilot right now. Copilot, that's a free version of Copilot you can use using GPT-4o. You can just ask the Copilot to write you a program, like a to-do list program using Perl and maybe HTML, and then you will actually produce a pretty good code in general. And then you can try to run it, and then you can see you can let the ChatGPT to teach you like each step you did. What does syntax mean if you are confused? And yeah, I actually used the Copilot a lot for this project, even though it's not helping Perl much. Like it's using many old Perl code from, I don't know, maybe 6 years ago. And so some of the syntax of some of the format are no longer accurate. You have to test that yourself. And but yeah, just play something yourself and ask ChatGPT to do something for you, to do a demo codes, and then ask if you know someone with the language, they know the language, ask them for help. I mean, that's the easiest way. Ask someone for help. Yeah, that would be how I would learn the language for sure.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much for that advice. Ohi, I hope you were listening, and everyone else. We could probably all learn from this advice. Okay, great. Well, let's have a round of applause for Vincent.